Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. The divisional round of the playoffs is here, and we're going to go through all three slates that DraftKings has for us based on the questions that are going to be asked by the Twitch chat. They got a Saturday 2-gamer, they got a Sunday 2-gamer, as well as the overarching 4-game slate with the $3 million millionaire maker on that one. So we're going to take a look at all things NFL DFS on this playoff weekend, the last 4-game slate of the year. Only getting smaller from here. We get to the championship week, then the Super Bowl for the showdown for that one. And I hope that you guys have enjoyed all the content. And if you do, make sure that you drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, ring the notifications bell. Look out for my Best Buys article, the 06010 podcast on ESPN, all the other things. And let's go.
He's a legend.
All right, let's bring in the chat. Let's see what they have to ask about today. Like I said, we have 3 slates. We have a Saturday only 2-gamer. We have a Sunday only 2-gamer, and we have the overarching 4-game slate. They're all short slates. You're gonna break rules. I do believe, before I know this is gonna get asked probably multiple times as people tune in during the live show, I do think that tight end is viable in flex this weekend, and I don't think that it is merely one tight end that's viable. Like, okay, I would only allow Kelsey, right, to be a part of double tight end lineups. I think Kelsey, I think Schultz, I think Ingram, to some degree Dawson Knox, Dallas Goedert. I think that this is very much possible to be a 2 tight end week for this reason. Let me bring up that slate. Here's the 4-gamer. So like looking down at this range, here's the tight ends. Kelsey at 7,700, Kittle at 5,700, Goddard at 45. So it's really these 4,500 and down guys that to me are extremely interesting, and they're interesting because let's look at the flex plays in that range. There's Goddard and his volume, which has been strong, though it yo-yos up and down, especially now being on the downswing, or has been on the downswing with the emergence late in the season, second half of the season, of Devontae Smith, who really took a leap forward once Goddard went on IR. And when he came back, Smith's role did not decline as we were worried that it might. It just did not decline. Evan Ingram, we've seen massive usage from him. We also have a really good matchup for him against Jacksonville. Jacksonville is also a tremendous matchup for against tight ends. They have allowed a 119 to 120 rating, the Jacksonville defense, to opposing quarterbacks when targeting the tight end. Guess what? Travis Kelce, really good tight end. So great matchup for Kelsey, like the best. And he hasn't scored a touchdown since week 12. Not saying he's due, because there is nobody who is due. That's just stupid. But like, if there is a spot for a breakout game from Travis Kelce, a spot for a ceiling game from Travis Kelce, considering that he has had, 11 touchdowns in his last 11 playoff games with the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is through for like 11 touchdowns in their playoff games last year. Travis Kelce, massive spot, and lines up very well against the elite wide receivers and running backs that are in this range as well. But down here at this range, look at the other guys. Like, are you playing Boston Scott over the volume from Goddard or Ingram, or Dalton Schultz coming off the game that he played last week? 8, 9, 10 targets the last 3 weeks, 4 touchdowns over that span from Dalton Schultz. Admittedly, an extremely tough matchup for the entirety of this Dallas offense against San Francisco. Kadarius Toney, like, there's touchdown upside, but there's no volume. You look at the volume of these tight ends, and you're playing them against guys like Darius Slayton as a flex play in the same price range. You're playing them against guys like at 3,900, like Richie James, Michael Gallup, Dawson Knox versus Michael Gallup. Gallup's got more big play upside. Marvin Jones Jr., strong, 6+ targets in 4 of the last 5 games. That's strong. What option is Marvin Jones Jr. right now? He's behind Etienne, Kirk, not in the passing game with Etienne. That's a whole other story. Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. He's like the 5th option on that offense right now. T.Y. Hilton, 3,200, getting 4+ targets a week. So the point is, tight end is very viable as a dual tight end play this week. You hope the Giants win so we can stop playing the Eagles running back guessing game. I don't know that it's much of a guessing game right now. It's basically Miles Sanders. And it's Miles Sanders specifically as a leverage play off of the great play that Jalen Hurts is this week. So if you're playing Jalen Hurts, I'm not saying you can't play Miles Sanders if you are playing Jalen Hurts. I'm saying that if you're playing one, especially with as highly played as Miles Sanders is projecting to be, one of the top 3 on projected ownership right now at that running back position, it's him, McCaffrey, and ETN in no particular order, depending on which site. You know, those are 1, 2, and 3 in any order, all at around 30% projected this weekend. So seems that paying up for running back this week will be incredibly contrarian. I think that people are going to have one expensive running back. I also think that a lot of lineups are going to be built around ETN Sanders and paying up at wide receiver. I don't see Christian McCaffrey coming in at 15 or lower. I see him being 30% or higher. He's just too good a play. Other than McKinnon, do I think Kansas City has too many mouths to feed that they don't make a dent volume-wise in a lineup? I think it's Kelsey and everybody else. Much like the Bills, where I think it's Diggs and everybody else. The only predictable volume on both of those offenses is Travis Kelsey and Stephon Diggs. Those are the 2 guys that, when you look at it, are the only guys that do basically anything every single week. Do I know why DraftKings stops their service in the EU? I do not. I can guess, but like, I don't know why. Like, I don't have the full-on answers, but like, my guess would be the same as, why did they pull out of Rainmakers in Pennsylvania? Why did they pull out of Rainmakers in Connecticut? Because the governments in those areas said, hey, you can't operate here anymore. And they said, okay, we pull out. It's not like, it's never DraftKings that doesn't want to serve you, right? It's never the service provider that's like, nah, we don't want to service those customers. It always has to do with the lawyers. That's just the truth of the matter. What are cash game builds going to look like this weekend? I think 2 tight end is in play for cash. I am not playing cash at all. On a 4-game slate? But the basics of a cash game build are probably going to be, I mean, they're the later game, right? Yeah, they're the latest game. I can put them there. It's probably going to be something like this, just off the top of my head, right? I don't know. I think you're going to pay down at tight end, whether it's for Schultz or Ingram. And then I think you're going to have to get, I think you're going to see Deebo Samuel in a lot because he's too cheap, even though there's a lot of mouths to feed there. I think Deebo Samuel is going to be really heavy played this weekend in tournaments, coming off of the week that he came off of, and people wanting to write that narrative, which means that I think that Ayuk is a fantastic, leverage play off of everybody that's going to want to play Deebo. And then kind of look at what else you have. The Bengals going up against Buffalo. Buffalo's given up a lot of turnovers, fumbles, interceptions, and they gave up like 7 sacks in the last game. They're just a chuck and duck offense right now, which is great. And they're winning. Like, look, think about how bad Buffalo looked last week offensively. Oh man, they looked terrible. Yeah, they still scored 34 points. They looked terrible and scored 34, 35, 34, 35, 32. They're going to put up 30 plus. It doesn't matter how you think they look. They're that good. And then you got 5,700 to fill out something like this. I think that this is going to be very common. I don't know that it's the way, right? But I think that's going to be very common. And then people are going to look for 2 value plays and then pay up for one of the top 3 quarterbacks. I think that they're going to pay up for Mahomes or Allen or Hurts. Go with 2 value plays down in here to kind of fill it out, because like Hurts at 7,600 seems like a cheat code. Then you have 4,800 to go. And that's not difficult at all, right? That's not difficult here. Like, it's very easy to build a cash game lineup, but I think it's going to look something like that. But I have paid absolutely no attention to cash this week because it's a 4-game slate, and I'm not trying to, I'm trying to win all the money that's left on the table in daily fantasy NFL. I'm not trying to win and make the thing trickle, right? I'm not trying to put in $100 to win 140. I'm trying to win a couple $100,000. What's the better play, ETN or Jacksonville wide receivers for the Saturday only slate? So just on Saturday, you just have to play stuff. I know that sounds flippant and stupid, but it's not. It's honest, because you just don't have that many options, right? There's 2 games. There's 2 games. So you kind of have to, it's going to revolve around what you choose at quarterback, to be honest. If you're going to play Mahomes or Hurts, you have to make different decisions than if you play Daniel Jones or Trevor Lawrence, right? If you think that Daniel Jones, and again, box score hunters are going to see the 3-game run that he's on and ignore the fact that came against Minnesota twice and Indy. The encouraging parts for me are not the number here, the number here. The encouraging part for me is this number, this number, this number, right? It's the attempts rushing, right? That they have changed the way that he operates right now since the Philly game, where he only ran it 4 times against them. Where now their modus operandi in this game against Indy, Minnesota doesn't put very much pressure on. They did last week. Anytime there was any pressure, he was coached to take off, right? Vanilla Vic, however you want to call it. He was coached to just go, right? Run, Forrest. That was by design. They weren't design runs, but it was, you have enough talent with your legs that if the first and second option are not there by 2.5 seconds, go. And he went 17 times because that allows, right? That provides. That allows the offense to stay on the field. That keeps the opposing offense off the field. That allows for sustained drives. That's a sense of relief that you're in second and short, third and short, as opposed to second and longer or third and longer. If you take sacks, do not take sacks. Take off. So that philosophy gives him a much higher floor than usual. Now, whether he can access a ceiling and get us 25 plus DraftKings points, because make no mistake, at 5,800, 25 plus DraftKings points would be a ceiling performance from Daniel Jones, just based on salary, that it would open up enough for us because of the 78 yards rushing, the 91 yards rushing. Yes, he scored 2 touchdowns on the ground that week. 2 touchdowns, 35 attempts, 24 attempts. So, like, if you're playing somebody like him, that opens up an awful lot more for you to just go get to stuff. And, like, you want to correlate, but, like, it's a 2-game slate. You need to have the guys who ceiling. And the guys who ceiling very typically are these guys from Kirk, McKinnon, Etienne, Smith, Brown, Kelsey, Barkley. Now, what I was saying earlier about playing Jalen Hurts with Sanders, yes, they can both go off in the same game, right? They can both have a really good game. In week 14 against the Giants, they scored 48 real life points. Hurts ran for 77 and a touchdown, threw for another 2, had a 30-plus point game, as one does when you're Jalen Hurts. And Miles Sanders also was hyper efficient that week, running the ball 17 times for 144, only caught 1 ball. He does not correlate well with Jalen Hurts. They are opposing forces. They do not like one another in terms of the correlation matrix. If one goes off, it typically means the other did not. But he also had a 30-point game. If you look at all the other games, it was very rare that he had a monster game. I mean, not like a normal game, not 15 points, not 14 points, 32, 34, 31. It's tougher for him to correlate because he needs rushing touchdowns to get there. And also Jalen Hurts has to score touchdowns. So, like, unless they're scoring 40-plus points, it's very hard for both Hurts and Sanders to get in the lineup. So Hurts is going to be really highly played. Sanders is going to be really highly played. I'm going to be careful, or at least mindful, about how often I'm playing both of them in the same lineup. However, on a 2-game slate, that's more specific to the 4-game slate. But on the 2-game slate, rules are out the window, guys. Just play the guys who score the most points. As little help as that statement is, that's the facts of short slate football, which is why I like short slate football less. Would I play Jones naked to fit players you want to stack? You can, but are you really fading all the pass catching options for the Giants? If Jones has the game that you want him to have, what does that look like? It's the same question as always, right? So if you're playing all the stacking options, trying to get to those points, how many points does Jones have to have for you to win a tournament? You know, remember the Millie Maker that had 7 players from the same game? Wasn't that hoop earlier in the year when, like, it was Detroit against somebody? There was like 7. It's Detroit, Seattle. There was like 75 or 80 total points in that game. Yeah, I mean, if that happens and all the touchdowns come out of one, it was Detroit, Seattle for sure. Because Lockett had a monster game and Metcalf had a monster game and Walker had a good enough, or whatever, not Walker, Penny maybe, and Amon-Ra had a monster game and somebody else on the, you know, it's ridiculous. But if you're playing a quarterback, you got to think about how many points are you expecting from that quarterback for that lineup to be viable to challenge for the top spot. And if it had the top spot in that tournament, what did that quarterback's stat line look like? And what is his path to that? Now, can Daniel Jones throw for 135 yards and run for 150 and 3 touchdowns? Yeah, sure. But like, what's the probability of that? If Daniel Jones is going to be on a winning lineup this week, he's probably going to have a minimum of 150 passing yards with 2 touchdowns passing. Probably going to have 70 yards passing or rushing with at least 1 rushing touchdown. Against Philly, probably not. Okay, again, you have to work in reverse. You have to work in reverse. Meaning, if you have a tournament winning lineup with Daniel Jones probably had 25 plus DraftKings points. If Daniel Jones has 25 plus DraftKings points, what did his day look like? Does Saquon correlate with Jones more than any other running back wide receiver combo? On the weekend, I don't see much running back quarterback combinations. You have McCaffrey, right? But he's got, while we know that this McCaffrey exists, 9 targets, 8 targets, 10 targets, they have enough weapons that they don't have to force feed him targets every single week. 3 targets, 2 targets, 3 targets, 2 targets. It's entirely possible that he's going to have a 6-catch game. It's also possible he's going to have a 2-catch game because of the presence of Ayuk, Debo, Kittle, right? They have more than enough weapons. Barkley, 6 targets is great, 10 targets is great, 8 targets is great. 4 targets, 2 catches. 2 targets, 2 catches. 1 target, 1 catch. They're not being utilized as specifically in the pass game as they have in past years. And I think Barkley's a fine play this weekend, also off of McCaffrey, who should be higher held. Buffalo really bad at tackling. Joe Mixon, though, playing like a tired running back. They're not giving him the same volume that they gave him at the beginning of the season. He's not getting these 25 to 30 touch games anymore. You got this one, 25 opportunities, 16, 15 opportunities. But also, Cincinnati's much better in any game where they're not playing Baltimore. What about McKinnon? Everybody wants McKinnon had like a nice stretch, right? This stretch in here, 35 points, 34 points, 8 opportunities, 5 opportunities. He's back to McKissickville. He's just back to McKissickville. 7 straight weeks of touchdowns. Touchdowns are not predictive. Based on the volume he's getting, his touchdown usage is not sustainable. It doesn't mean he's not going to score a touchdown this week. It means that it's tough for him to keep scoring touchdowns on this little volume. Now, if he was to get 15 to 20 opportunities, like he got against Houston, like he got against Denver, 18 opportunities, 8 targets, 10 carries against Houston, against Denver, 15 opportunities, 9 targets, 6 rushing attempts. Like that level of usage, 50, 60% of the snap rate at running back, plenty of opportunities, plenty of carries, plenty of catches to buoy the floor, and also give him that touchdown upside where he scored 4 touchdowns those weeks. It's tough. And that doesn't mean he's not going to score a touchdown this weekend. It's just rough. San Francisco has no outlet catchers. They're all number ones. They're embarrassment of riches for San Francisco. They have 2 alpha wide receivers. They have a game-breaking pass-catching tight end. They have the most versatile running back in the league and productive from an EPA per play standpoint. All those sorts of things, right? That you can plug just about any quarterback in and they're going to be fine. And on top of that, they have an amazing coach when it comes to game planning, play calling, and putting those players in the most advantageous situations. That you can have a guy like Brock Purdy come in and manage the game and do very well. Or Jimmy Garoppolo manage the game and do very well. Jimmy Garoppolo is not an elevator of talent. Jimmy Garoppolo is a delivery man. Brock Purdy is a delivery man. They bring you the pizza, which is great because pizza's freaking delicious, right? I love pizza. Pizza's great. But delivery man didn't make the pizza. He didn't invent pizza. He didn't come up with the recipe for the sauce. He brought the pizza. So as long as Brock Purdy keeps delivering the pizza to those 4 guys, he's going to keep posting really good numbers because everything else is great. Yelp reviews disagree. Damn it. I tend to lean on volume, and that can get me in trouble sometimes because when the non-volume guys have a big day, those are the days I don't win. When guys who get 7, when Nyheim Hines scores 2 touchdowns and has 80 receiving yards on 8 opportunities like that, those are the weeks I lose. If Jerick McKinnon has 8 opportunities and scores 2 touchdowns, that's going to be a week I lose if it happens this week, right? But I do think that Jerick McKinnon's opportunities are greater than Isaiah Pacheco's opportunities, and it's very possible that due to the fumbling issues that Pacheco has had, we may not see him as much as we saw him during that stretch at the end of the season, because the last 2 weeks he's had 8 opportunities and 11 opportunities. And now they're coming off a bye, and go look up the stats with Andy Reid off a bye. What happens if Brock makes the pizza? No, Brock doesn't make it. Shanahan's the chef. Brock Purdy's the waiter. He brings the pizza to the table. If it's a blowout, Pacheco will eat. So that's going to be the game that everybody flocks to because it's the highest total. It's at like 53, right? Let's go look at Fantasy Labs real quick and their Vegas page. That's a free page. If you guys want to go check this out, go to Fantasy Labs. You can go to smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. If you want to get a discounted subscription to Fantasy Labs, you go over here, you go to the NFL tab, you scroll down here to Vegas, you click this, absolutely free tab. This is the highest total on the week. Okay, it's 53. Nothing else is within 5 points. Well, this one's 4. This is the easiest game to target quarterback, pass catcher, multiple pass catchers on Jacksonville, because it's very tough to pick which one because they're all good and they're all 6K and below. And Ingram is criminally low priced at tight end. Kelsey is amazing. You can pick one other guy from them as well. If you're playing Saturday only, it's basically a lot of guys from this game. It's weird how on the Saturday only slate, the Philadelphia pass catchers are so expensive. Like AJ Brown, 7,600. Smith, 7,200. Sanders is a value at 57. Goddard, 45. And then like you look at KC and Jacksonville, Kelsey, 75. And then all the other pass catchers, 6K for Kirk. Why is Christian Kirk 6K and Devontae Smith is 7,200? That 1v1 pricing doesn't make sense to me. And then Zay Jones is 4,700. Has Zay Jones done anything wrong? Like, he gets a lot of targets. We know that he has a ceiling. We've seen him be productive all year. And Evan Ingram's like 4,300. He was 44 last week, scored 22 points against the Chargers on 11 targets, and his price came down. Where Hodgins is now up at like 49. Clipping and sending Brock as a delivery man to every night is, go ahead. What are they going to do? Tweet at me? Hey, you said a thing about our 7th round quarterback that he just delivers the ball. Yeah, it's what he does. I said the same thing about Garoppolo last year. It's what he does. They're not special. You know, they're not Josh Allen. They're not Patrick Mahomes. They're not Joe Burrow. They're not Justin Herbert. Put any of those quarterbacks in that offense and like watch it take off. Purdy's pizza delivery. Yeah. Print the shirts. Print the freaking shirts. Headlock, can you print the shirts? That would be a good one. Purdy's pizza delivery. That would actually be a good shirt. Like just here, like Purdy's pizza delivery with like Purdy holding a pizza, like something like that. That would be the best merch. Purdy's pizza delivery. He's Brad Johnson. More spry, but yeah. Brad Johnson was more of a statue. But yeah, I'd buy it. I want to get that up in the merch store like immediately. I love me a pizza delivered in a normal amount of time. Exactly. I have absolutely no license to the players. This is going to be completely illegal, but we're doing it. We're going to put it in the merch store, ! Merch in the chat. We're going to sell them. And then when Teespring takes them off, like they're going to be limited edition because Teespring's going to disallow it at some point. These are coming down. These are not going to last. You got to get in quick. Like a red shirt, gold print, Purdy's pizza delivery, just on the left chest with Purdy's, like some guy, quarterback in a football helmet holding a pizza. Like that. I think that would be that's the way. Need to put a picture of Purdy on. No. See? It's just going to be a random football guy, right? It's just going to be a random picture of somebody holding up a pizza, right? Better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Yeah, if we don't use his likeness. That's what I'm saying. So I said not his picture. Yeah, not his face. Just a guy in a football helmet holding a pizza. This is great. I like this idea. I'm on board. I'm going to get a Purdy pizza shirt. This is great. Thank you guys for that idea. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can go to the merch store. It's right down below. Get yourself a Smith Gang sweatshirt. Buy the Purdy pizza shirt. It'll be up probably by this weekend. I think we've handled everything that needs to be handled for this slate. Like, that kind of wraps us up unless you guys have other questions. It's a pretty straightforward slate, and DraftKings made it so super friendly with the pricing that you can play 3 studs. But I would highly suggest correlating your lineups. I would highly suggest correlating it. Okay? The best secondary stack on the week. Does it get any better than that? Can we do better than this? Jamar Chase and Steph Diggs, both in matchups against teams that don't stop what they do. Jamar Chase in the playoff run last year was fantastic. Jamar Chase since coming back from injury has been ridiculous. The last 5 games, 12, 13, 12, 13, 15 targets. No less than 7 catches in any of those games, touchdowns in 4 of 5. Looking at Steph Diggs. Now, the Buffalo Bills have kind of turned into a chuck and duck offense the last couple of weeks. And the common theme was Buffalo's offense looked terrible last week. Like, right? They still scored 34 points. They looked terrible, and they still hung a 34 on the board. 35, 35, 32. They're scoring 30 plus, guys. They're probably scoring 40 plus. This game, not the highest scoring game of the projected wise on the weekend if you look at the Vegas totals, right? 48. But I could see 60 plus points coming out of this game. Like, it could happen. And if it does happen, Steph Diggs is the one predictable piece on that offense. And if you look at the things that those teams don't do well, one, let's start with Cincinnati. Okay? Let's start with Cincinnati. So looking at what they do poorly, right, against wide receivers, Cincinnati allows 11.7 yards per completion, by far the most among remaining playoff teams. By far, not even close. Cincinnati also allows the highest average depth of target to wide receivers in the NFL at 12.9. They're the only team in the playoffs that it was ranked in the bottom 10 of the league in that statistical category. So, like, what have the Bills been doing the last 2 weeks? Like I said, they're a chuck and duck offense. They take sacks, they throw it deep. Well, that puzzle piece fits. And you know that Steph Diggs is going to win at the short and intermediate routes as well, right? And then on the other side of the ball, the Buffalo Bills have really struggled against number 1 wide receivers. Right? They're a good defense. Tre'Davious White, really good cornerback, but they've not been good. They're not putting a lot of pressure on people. 6 times this season, a wide receiver has hit the 100-yard bonus with a touchdown catch. Both. Bing, bing. Touchdown and 100 yards on DraftKings against Buffalo. Justin Jefferson, 10 catches, 193 and a touch. Kupp, 13, 128 and a touch. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 9 for 122 and a touch. Jalen Waddle, 3, 114 and a touch. He's obviously not the alpha there, but, like, he did it. Juju Smith-Schuster, 5 for 113 and a touch. Amari Cooper, 8 for 113 and 2 tutties. Both could feast, right? And Jamo says that secondary can actually work in a decent lineup. Hell yeah, it can. It can work in any lineup. In fact, I even told you at the end of first look that, like, that could certainly work, right? So, like, going back to DraftKings, you can make this work with him. Have fun. You can do that. That's on the menu this week. That's how friendly the pricing is, that you can do that. Now, if you do that, you can't play the premium quarterback with him. You can do it with, like, Burrow. You'd have to get really frisky, right? You could do it with Burrow, I think. You'd have to get very frisky, though, right? You'd have to pay down. You'd have to go with, like, Sanders there. You'd have to go with, like, T.Y. Hilton, some 3K-ish wide receiver. You'd have to pay down at tight end for somebody like Schultz. That, you know, that correlates heavily with McCaffrey. You'd have to come way down at defense, playing like the Giants or the Bengals, and you'd have 4,500. You know, don't think Purdy can be a top QB this week? Question mark. I mean, everybody's good. When I say double tight end is in play, do I mean any 2 tight ends? I mean, not any, but most. Any of the tight end ones, yes. I think that you could probably play any of the tight end ones as a flex this week. And the thing is, like, you're saying it as the flex because Kelsey and Ingram both play in the first game, right? So, like, they're going to get locked. If you put one of them in the lineup, they're not technically in your flex. But, like, you want to play Goddard, you want to play Knox, you want to play Hurst, you want to play Kittle with them, go for it. I think that the contrarian play is going to be to play both of them from the first game and lock your flex early in the 2-day contest, because the sharper players aren't going to want to lock their flex that early. So you'll be able to differentiate by playing Ingram, Kelsey combo IMO. While both will have a high percentage, I'm not sure how many on a 4-game slate are going to play both of those and lock their flex in the first game, with as many other players that are in Kelsey's price range behind them, and most of them being on Sunday with Jamar Chase, Steph Diggs, all the San Francisco guys, Christian McCaffrey, and hell, even put CeeDee Lamb in that mix, you know? But I think definitely 2 tight end is in play. I think that the standard roster build is going to be cheap running backs and pay up for heavy volume wide receivers who have ceiling possibilities in large field tournaments. I think that in smaller field ones, if you're playing 100-man or down, single or limited entry, paying up for one of those two running backs, McCaffrey or Barkley, is not a terrible option. I'd prefer to pay up for McCaffrey than Barkley personally, but that just means that Barkley's going to be less played in tournaments and therefore is more of a leverage play. McCaffrey also gives you all the late swap possibilities if you're playing one or two other players from that game. Leave yourself flexibility, give yourself as many options as you can. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend. I wish you all the best of luck, and we will see you next week for first look for the championship weekend. Bye, everybody.
He's a legend.